familiar faces. Thank you so much for joining us today for this informational webinar on the ADE and Letters Initiative for Early Childhood. We are very, very excited that you could join us, and we hope that this webinar proves informational, proves helpful. As a reminder, as you enter, if you could please make sure you're on mute. We are recording this webinar for those who can't attend, and that way everybody can get the information that they need. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. My name is Sean Ross. I'm the Deputy Associate Superintendent of Academic Standards at the Arizona Department of Education. I have the honor of leading the team that oversees the department's work in early childhood, all academic subject areas, the Arizona Charter School program, and our K-12 post-secondary initiatives. And so we're one of the few teams in the agency that actually goes cradle to career, and we're very proud of that. It's a large scope of work, but it's an amazing team and it's an amazing group of people, some of whom are here today. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Rhonda. And we're particularly excited that as the department, we are partnering with Lexia Learning to bring letters training, language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, to thousands of teachers across the state in an attempt to build teacher understanding and educator understanding in the science of reading, so that we are helping kids become lifelong readers from day one. We are giving them the foundational skills that they need in order to have a life of reading. We believe reading is a civil right, and that every child, every student should have access to the wonders of the book. And so we're going to go ahead and jump in right now. I'll introduce my colleagues from Lexia in a bit, and let's get a little background information as we start. So how come we can do this suddenly? The department has never been able to fund letters training before, but we are super excited that we are able to use some ESSER funding, some American Relief Act funding, in order to help fund this training. In particular, just for some background information, back in 2021, the governor's office gave the department $19 million to start what were called acceleration academies. These were grants that went out to K-12 schools to accelerate learning in reading and math. As that funding hit, so did ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funding. And so a number of schools actually didn't claim this funding. They said, oh, we have more funding coming. We're going to turn this grant down at this moment. So instead of sending that money back to the federal government, we said, hey, we think we can do something pretty magical with it. And we worked with the governor's office and we got approval to instead use that funding to procure letters training for educators across the state. So we procured 51 cohorts of Letters 3rd edition, which we have offered to K-5 teachers across the state. We procured 10 cohorts of Letters Early Childhood, and then 6 cohorts of letters for administrators. 40 of those 3rd edition cohorts are already either up and running or will be up and running in the next month or so. And Kelly and Doria from Lexia, who again I'll introduce in a bit, have been instrumental in helping those get set up at some of our districts that are in most need of some support, and districts have been jumping at the chance. And so we rolled out those 3rd edition trainings first, and knowing that those 3rd edition trainings have rolled out, we decided, well, now would be a great time to have the early childhood cohorts accompany, because again, we know reading starts at the start. And so when I say cohort, just as a quick transition, a cohort for letters is about 40 educators. So if we have 10 cohorts of early childhood, that's about 400 folks we can train across the state. So a little more information for those of you who are here. Big thank you to Wendy Logue from our early childhood team who did the outreach for this project. Wendy and I worked together closely and looked at some data that helped to show where there was the highest need for training of this type. We wanted to make sure that the schools that served our most vulnerable populations got first dibs on this really wonderful training. So we used data that included opportunity zones, poverty data, free and reduced lunch data, percentage of students from vulnerable populations, rural and tribal status, and we were able to identify a number of districts that we wanted to make this initial offer to. So actually, just so you know, we're not opening this up to anyone. This is actually really invitation only, and so we're so thankful that you were interested and are here and would like to participate. We're really, really thankful for that, and we're excited to get a chance to potentially train your early childhood educators. In particular, for those of you who, like I see Heidi from Amphi, those of you who are here from districts where we are also doing the third edition training. So what a great opportunity to train these staffs from, the earliest age all the way through, and get those kids those reading foundations from the start. So just to explain a little bit about the logistics of how this will unfold, over the course of last month and this month, Wendy did outreach to the eligible schools and districts. We are holding this informational webinar today. We are recording it and we're going to send it out to your program. So if you miss anything today, or if you're frantically taking notes, we are going to send the recording to you. So don't stress that, or if you need to share it with an administrator or a colleague. There were also some folks from eligible schools and districts that weren't able to attend, so we're going to send this out to them as well. And then Wendy is going to send out a Google form or Microsoft form where you can confirm your interest in the program and tell us about how many teachers you think you will have who can participate, how many educators, early childhood educators you have that you think will participate. We will then share this information with Lexia, and then they will start their outreach and start getting everybody, rostered and find out where to send materials. Again, for those of you who've participated in the K-5 space, it's going to be the exact same process that we've used before. So just a little bit about logistics, and I will take questions at the end. So if you have questions, go ahead and write them down. I'm again covering sort of the ADE portion, and then Kelly and Doria will come in and talk about letters itself. Whenever we talk about an early literacy initiative in Arizona, we always like to give a little bit of a data walk, a little bit of a data story, so that you understand the origins of why these initiatives are so important and why it's so important to build capacity in this manner. This will be relatively brief, but I wanted to share some data that you may not have seen before. So as an example, we have some longitudinal data from preschools across the state, including a number of Head Start preschools that use the Teaching Strategies Gold formative assessment tool. Coincidentally, that is also the tool that was selected for the kindergarten entry assessment that begins this year and fully implemented next year. So we have some longitudinal data from that tool. It's in use with about 19,000 kids, 20,000 kids across the state. And what you'll notice is what is spelled out on this slide: the percentage of students scoring below widely held expectations for development in key domains, including social emotional development, language, literacy, physical motor, cognitive development. The number of students scoring at the widely held expectations went down during the pandemic, not surprising. Now, the good news is we're seeing a bounce back now that the pandemic is fading, hopefully, knock on wood. The pandemic is fading away, but we are seeing definitely a bounce back. But it did illustrate the need for that extra support to help train those teachers specifically in the science of reading and to help them build those foundational skills in their students right from the start. We see that trend continue out a little bit. This is actually data from the third grade statewide reading exam for the past 6 years. And what you'll notice is students had been making progress towards passing the third grade reading exam from 2015 to 2019. Incremental, but still really trending in a positive direction. We saw the number of students passing, which would be the gray and orange bars combined, going up. We saw the number of students in the minimally proficient range, which is that green bar, going down. It's the exact trend we wanted to see. And then the pandemic hit, and we have the data from 2021. 2022 is coming any day now, actually. But you'll notice that there was a huge spike in the number of students who tested minimally proficient and a decrease in the number of students who passed the third grade reading exam. Again, not surprising given all the challenges of the pandemic. And so, but also just illustrating the need for initiatives like this. And this is the kind of data we take to the state board, to the legislature, when we talk about the need for funding so that we can help better support teachers and schools. And then just one last look at our most vulnerable students. This is data for third grade reading for our economically disadvantaged students, our most vulnerable population. And sadly, there is a gap that has existed pre-pandemic, but that gap was exacerbated during the pandemic. So again, just a bit of data to illustrate the need for this kind of initiative. And again, between the early childhood cohorts and the K-5 cohorts, we are training almost 3,000 preschool and K-5 teachers across the state over the next 2 years in letters, and we're super excited about that. And we're really excited to be able to offer this opportunity to teachers across the state. So that is actually the end of my part of the presentation as far as the ADE piece goes, the logistics for ADE. My amazing colleagues, I could not be fonder of these two people or have more respect for them and the work they do. Kelly Storbo and Doria Sullivan from Letters are with us. They're going to talk about Letters early childhood. They're going to talk about what that training looks like, give you some details on the training itself, because we know that there are some questions there. And then again, all of us will be on the webinar after they finish to answer questions that you may have. So Kelly and Doria, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to you.
Perfect, thank you. And thumbs up if you can see the presentation. Okay, great, awesome. Okay, well, hey, everybody. We are thrilled to be with you all today to just go over some logistics of this professional learning experience and just tell you a little bit about how Letters for Early Childhood will really build your teacher's capacity to impact student achievement in reading. So we are so excited to be on this journey with you. It's so nice to see some familiar faces in the audience. So my name is Doria Sullivan, and I'm the account executive for Letters Professional Learning, typically working with some of our larger state implementations, Arizona being one of them. And this is my colleague, Kelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Storbo, and I'm the Letters State Success Manager. And so what that means is I'm going to be there to support you all throughout this process and make sure that you are getting everything you need out of this amazing opportunity that the Arizona Department of Ed is offering for all of you. And so we are just, again, really excited to be here today and to be able to share with you guys all about this opportunity with Letters for Early Childhood Educators. And so we're going to kind of run through, what is this about? Why would you want to do this? And then give you a little preview of what it looks like. And just like we've already said, some of you are already very familiar with Letters training, and it's very similar to that. Probably the biggest difference is it's just a shorter amount of time that it takes to get through it. So with that, let's start with why early childhood letters, and what is so important and special about this professional learning opportunity. And so, the first thing that we just want to talk about is developing early literacy skills makes it easier for children to learn to read. Children who enter school with these skills have an advantage that carries them throughout their school years. However, what we know is that more than 1 in 3 American children enter kindergarten without the skills they need to learn to read. That's according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. Reading is an essential skill for success in school later in life. And so that's where we want Letters for Early Childhood, to come in and play a role here. So what we know is that reading instruction is a science. The research shows that about half of teacher undergraduate colleges and universities do not focus on the science behind reading instruction. In other words, teachers aren't taught the what, why, and how of scientifically based reading instruction, which includes how to diagnose the source of the struggle in a student's literacy development and how to intervene with instruction that matches the need. That information comes to us from the National Council on Teacher Quality. And so Letters is an opportunity for us to give the information, to gain the knowledge that's needed for teachers to really provide the instruction that students need in order to become literate and to become readers. So just some additional thoughts on why and why now. We've already spoken a little bit about the last couple of years and the struggles that we've had all across the country as we've dealt with the pandemic. And so here's just a little bit more information around what has happened in our schools. So in 2020, more than 1 million children did not enroll in local schools. More than 340,000 of those students were kindergarten students, and we've seen a 9.3% drop in enrollment from 2019 to 2020. So many of those students that we talked about that haven't enrolled in school are our most vulnerable 5-year-olds. Kindergarten losses were the steepest in schools and even more so in our poorest neighborhoods. Remote schooling was a main factor driving enrollment declines. Districts that went strictly remote experienced 42% more decline. And so just some data and some information to kind of back up why we need this for our educators right now. We've always needed this information, but it's even more critical after the last couple of years that we've had. And so we just want to make sure that we're offering the best training that we possibly can to our teachers so that we can make a difference in the lives of our students. And so that brings us to teachers make the difference. We know that teachers matter more to student success than any other aspect of schooling. So Letters is an investment in you or in your teachers. It's an investment in your professional learning because it's you that will make the difference in the lives of your students. And even more than that, early literacy matters. It has profound and far-reaching effects. There's strong agreement among preschool educators that all children deserve quality learning experiences that are sensitive to their social, emotional needs and that stimulate language, cognitive, and physical development. The early childhood years are critical for building the foundation for future success. And the role you play in developing early literacy skills in young students will make a profound impact on their school years and in life. So let's talk a little bit more about that science behind teaching reading. In order to provide the right support for young children, it's important to attend to the substantial and growing body of empirical research guiding curriculum, assessment, and instructional decisions. The science of reading, or SOR, is a vast interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research about reading. This conclusive, empirically studied body of research informs us about the what, the why, and the how of early literacy instruction. Now, if you've already started your letters learning, much of these next couple of slides are going to be very familiar to you, but it's important that we kind of set the foundation for everybody and make sure that we have a little bit of that background knowledge. And so what you see now hopefully is familiar to you. This is the simple view of reading. It provides a foundation for the concepts discussed in all of our letters courses. The simple view of reading is a well-validated concept that lies at the heart of understanding reading instruction. It was created by Goff and Tumner in 1986, and this formula serves as a broad reference to the complexity of reading. According to this model, competent reading is dependent on or a product of being able to decode words, word recognition, and making meaning of what is read, language comprehension. You'll notice that that is a multiplication problem, and that's on purpose because it takes both sides of that equation to create that competent reading comprehension. This model helps educators understand that both reading comprehension will be compromised if a student has deficits in either domain. Both domains are critical. Instruction in both domains is non-negotiable. And here's the thing, the development of each of these components begins in the preschool years. While this allows us to look at the big picture from a simple view, there are many skills that fit within these two areas. So let's take a closer look at some of these specific skills. So another foundational concept for all of our letters courses is Scarborough's reading rope. In 2011, researcher Dr. Hollis Scarborough used the metaphor of a rope with its many strands to explain the complexity of reading to parents and educators. This model illustrates the progressive interweaving of the skills needed for proficient reading. The word recognition strand, that's the blue strands down at the bottom, phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition of familiar words work together as the reader becomes more accurate and increasingly automatic with explicit instruction, repetition, and practice. The finite tasks in this strand should be developed by 3rd grade, but we know this is often not the case. Concurrently, the language comprehension strands, those are those red ones at the top of the rope, background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge reinforce one another. Instruction in these strands begins at birth and never stops developing. Through oral language, then written language, and across all content areas and experiences. The early stages in the development of all of these crucial skills is described in detail in the Letters for Early Childhood course. So let's talk specifically about letters. Now, excuse me. Now that we've got that kind of theoretical basis and understanding what those theories that really underlie all of our letters courses, let's talk specifically about what Letters for Early Childhood is going to look like. It's designed especially for our preschool teachers. Every concept and skill in the Letters for Early Childhood is based on scientific research, guiding our understanding of how young children learn and effective ways to teach them that are engaging, effective, and developmentally appropriate. It's about playful learning and planful play. Oh, that's a mouthful. All right. So LETRS is an acronym for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. Letters for Early Childhood Educators is authored by Dr. Lucy Hart Paulson, a recognized authority in early childhood education in collaboration with Dr. Louisa Moats, one of our Letters authors. Letters for Early Childhood is a professional learning journey to deepen your own expertise and understanding to help young children to develop the early literacy and language skills needed in preschool and into kindergarten. The more children know about language and literacy before they begin kindergarten and 1st grade, the better equipped they are to succeed in reading and beyond. Letters for Early Childhood is not a curriculum that teaches students how to read. Rather, the content describes the research and translates the findings into everyday routines and effective practices for early childhood classrooms. Remember, Letters is an investment in you and your teachers. So let's learn a little bit more about Letters for Early Childhood. So Letters for Early Childhood Educators provides teachers opportunities for self-reflection and measuring knowledge gains. It helps teachers to recognize gaps in knowledge, thus increasing personal accountability for your district's reading program success. Letters provides flexible implementation models, self-paced online learning experience delivered in intuitive, digestible chunks. That's one of my favorite things about the Letters professional development is the small pieces and digestible chunks that you go through. It really gives teachers time to kind of take it in and make it their own and put it into practice into their classrooms. It provides educators with the background, depth of knowledge, and tools to teach language and literacy skills to every student through embedded online teacher modeling that illustrates each step of instruction. Shared learning opportunities provide a venue for authentic collaboration and build camaraderie and create a sense of shared purpose in achieving success with your district's literacy initiatives. Let's go ahead and listen to Dr. Lucy Hart Paulson tell us a little bit more about Letters for Early Childhood.
Hi, I'm Lucy Hart Paulson, and along with Dr. Louisa Moats, we are the authors of Letters for Early Childhood Educators. As you well know, the early childhood years are so important in building the foundational skills young children need for school and life success. Attending to a substantial and growing body of empirical research guiding curriculum, assessment, and instruction is important for providing the right kinds of supports for young children in educational settings. Letters for Early Childhood Educators is not a curriculum that teaches early literacy, but rather the content describes the research and translates the findings into everyday routines and effective practices for early childhood classrooms.
All right. So just to kind of make sure that we have a clear understanding, Letters for Early Childhood aligns with the recommendations of the National Early Literacy Panel on Developing Early Literacy. And so as you can see on the slide in front of you, each of these foundations of literacy are a part of that early childhood letters learning. And so each of those, what we might call the big five of literacy instruction, are a part of this professional development. All right, I'm going to let Doria tell us a little bit more.
Thank you, Kelly. So now we'll kind of get into, so how do we do this? We're going to dive a little more specifically into the Letters for Early Childhood course of study and what it looks like, feels like, how we kind of organize the professional learning experience. So how will the teachers learn? And it's really through, again, like Kelly mentioned earlier, this blended model approach that's very intentional in hitting multi-modalities of learning. So the intentional design of the Letters course of study, it includes a repetition of complex concepts through reading, an online platform, and through professional learning sessions. And this model affords the learner an opportunity to engage over time with this research to make it meaningful and to make it applicable in their work. So again, we go through it and we typically kind of hold up three, actually kind of four fingers here, where we say there's really just this, these different prongs that work in tandem with one another. So our teachers receive a print manual. And if you've been through the Letters course, our other 3rd edition course is a little bit thicker. So this is the Letters for Early Childhood Participant Manual. Then they'll receive access to our online platform where they'll engage in this online platform, which we'll show you in a little bit. Very engaging, interactive, based in adult learning theory, where they'll have an opportunity to watch some maybe video vignettes and do some matching and true and false, very interactive. Then there's one that's not listed here, but coming up on a future slide, which they'll have a bridge to practice piece, which is the application piece of the learning. And finally, there are the live online sessions. And Letters for Early Childhood, there are 4 3-hour live online sessions. So let's look at all of this and unpack it. Okay, so here are the units and the sessions in the Letters for Early Childhood. So there are 4 units over the course of a year. So it's organized around these 4 units, and each unit is centered on an essential topic. And there are 10 sessions. So let's look at Unit 1. So in Unit 1, we look at the research, policies, and standards that inform early childhood education, as well as a basic framework of assessment with predictive indicators across developmental domains. So Unit 1, and this is going to come in here, is definitely not about learning to read in preschool. It's about building the important foundations needed for our little ones to have a smooth transition into early reading and writing in primary grade levels. In Unit 2, we explore oral language structures and the stages of development linked to assessment procedures. We review instructional strategies to build oral language foundations, such as language facilitation techniques, questioning routines, and interactive storybook reading procedures. Unit 3. So the objective of Unit 3 is to really understand the developmental sequence of phonological awareness along with a linguistic hierarchy, and teachers will start to explore strategies and routines for developing these skills with their students. And finally, Unit 4. Unit 4 addresses the essential components of print awareness, really understanding the development of alphabetic learning and its relationship to instruction. Unit 4 also explores the progression of young children's writing in relation with the phases of literacy development. So kind of going back to the why, we could have put this in earlier, and this is some preliminary data from working with another one of our states that has a large letters implementation, and that is Alabama. So what we found is that the quality of teacher-child interactions is central to pre-K children's learning experiences. So in Alabama, pre-K classrooms with lead teachers who completed Letters for Early Childhood exceeded performance in both the national comparison sample and the average of all other pre-K classrooms, indicating better quality of teacher-child interactions. So this was measured using classroom assessment scoring system, which is a research-based instrument for defining and measuring effective teacher-child interactions and classroom quality. So Letters for Early Childhood trained classrooms, they scored higher rated in the spring of 2019 in all 3 major domains: emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. So really unpacking this really tiny slide that most of you can't see here. So in essence, down here, the green is indicating the teachers that were trained in Letters for Early Childhood. The blue is all first class pre-K, and the yellow is a national average. So in essence, for all of these, positive climate, teacher sensitivity, regard for student perspective, behavior management, productivity, instructional learning format, concept development, quality of feedback, and language, you want to see, right, the higher, and that's what you're seeing with our teachers who went through Letters for Early Childhood. They are far exceeding all the other averages. And look at this one right here. This is having a negative climate. So obviously we want to see a lower one here. And that's exactly what you see with our teachers who are trained in the early childhood course of study. Okay, so let's take just a little bit of time to see what Letters for Early Childhood looks like. What's the user experience? What does it feel like? And we'll go back over some of those key course components. So always good sometimes to kind of take a very high level lens of what this professional learning experience looks like. So many of you we see on here are going through, have some educators going through the Letters for Educators 3rd edition, which we know is a 2-year course of study. So Letters for Early Childhood, it's a 1-year professional learning experience. We say roughly, and we'll show you a little chart that kind of helps unpack this, it takes approximately 60 minutes per week. And that's going to be some of the asynchronous work for the teachers, where they will, again, go into the read in the print manual, get into the platform, and then do that application piece with their students. And then we also have the synchronous piece, which is coming to those live online sessions with some of our national letters trainers, including the author herself. She does a lot of training for us. We can only hope that she can come to Arizona and do some of the live online sessions for Arizona. But that would be 4 3-hour sessions or 2 full days, if you will, of live online synchronous work. So again, the asynchronous piece. Teachers receive the manual where they do some reading. They also receive a username and password to get into the online platform where they experience, again, remember, repetition. They go back into the content deeper and differently. Part of the asynchronous work is also this bridge to practice, where our teachers will be asked to identify 3 students that they will follow through the course collecting data, taking notes, reflecting on some of their new learning, how specific concepts, skills, and strategies can be applied. This is the application piece that's really critical and critical to this professional learning experience. And this is a bonus. If some of you have heard of the, know a lot about Letters for Early Childhood. Just recently, Lucy Hart Paulson created Good Talking Words, which is designed to help our educators teach young children foundational communication and social interacting skills. So it provides a series of 10 engaging, playful, developmentally appropriate lessons that aim to develop cooperative, pro-social behavior by teaching children specific communication skills and expected behaviors to interact in socially appropriate ways. And this is just not really part of the work. It's just a bonus. When you get access to the online platform, you get access to this amazing piece here called Good Talking Words. And then I'm so sorry about the bad, poor picture there, but remember, all of that is the asynchronous we just talked about. Then we follow up with the synchronous work, which is when, again, one of our National Letters for Early Childhood trainers does a live online session. We host 4 of those 3-hour sessions throughout the course of learning, really just to target going back into the content deeper, differently, and it affords an opportunity for your participants to ask questions, to really just process their learning with one of our national trainers. So we're going to provide some documents and supports. We know this is a lot of information as we kind of kick off this and what it looks like, what it feels like, but some of the resources we have we'll provide for you later on. But in essence, this is just a nice little way of looking through this. So remember, there are 4 units of study over the course of a year. Within those 4 units of study, we have 10 sessions. So unit 1, it just consists of 2 sessions. Looks a little bit different than our Letters for 3rd edition, the ebb and flow of it. But you notice again, similar, you're going to have an online piece, teachers again, username, password to get into the online platform. Then they'll be doing some reading, asynchronous, 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 bridge to practice, applying that learning. And then even though it says face-to-face, we're doing these with live online Zoom sessions where we will push in throughout that 1 year course of study and do our live online, which is kind of face-to-face with our national trainer.
All right, thanks, Doria. So just a couple last things to kind of talk through here and give you guys a little bit of background information and some thoughts around how this is going to move forward. So you know a little bit more about what the user experience will look like and what those course components are. Now we're going to talk about what happens next. And so for those of you that have been working with Doria and I to get the letters trainings up and running, it will feel very similar, just as Sean said earlier. The only difference is that there probably won't be as many of you that have full cohorts. Remember, a cohort is 40 people. And so we know that, most of you probably don't have 40 pre-K teachers in your district. And so that's where we'll have to do some coordination with the help of Wendy and her team to make sure that we can get those live learning sessions scheduled for all of you to be able to take part in. If you do have enough people to make a full cohort, then we'll work with you specifically to schedule those trainings. And so we'll be in touch once we get all of the contact information from Wendy to us. We'll be in touch and reaching out to each of you to set up some time to speak with you. During that time that we speak with you, it's usually about a 45-minute session, but also know that there's lots of follow-up discussions as well. But that initial discussion is really just to find out more about your specific situation, who will be involved, how many people, what your goals are, what your schedule might look like, all of those things that we need in order to get this all put together for you, so that not only we get it done in the time needed, but also it works for you and for your people. And so that you can expect to hear from Doria and I as we get started to really get all of the logistics of this project figured out. So we will provide you with what we call a pacing guide. It's a suggested pacing guide. And really all you need to know about this is just a way for you to kind of plan out over the course of the several months that you'll be doing this letters training, what it's going to look like. And you can give your folks that are participating some idea of how much time they have between those live learning sessions to dig into that online coursework as well as that manual to do the work, that asynchronous work. And so this is just a quick little sample of what that might look like over the course of several different months. And so we'll get that put together for you guys once we have some ideas around when we're going to schedule those synchronous learning sessions. Okay. All right. So one last thing we want to introduce you to is what we call the Letters Help Center. The Letters Help Center is a wealth of information. And so I encourage you guys to jot down this web address, help.lexialearning.com, and bookmark this site, because you're going to go back to it over and over again. I also encourage you to share it with those of your folks that are going to be participating. This is really your first line of defense in not having your inbox filled with lots and lots of questions. If you can share this with your folks and have them start looking into what they can learn at our Letters Help Center, they're going to find so many of their questions, and even more than they have questions about now is all right there in the Help Center. So you'll hear more about all of these things. We will provide all kinds of resources and information, as well as just know that Doria and I are here for you. We are ready to answer emails. We are ready to schedule appointments with all of you and get to know you, and can't wait to jump into this work with all of you. And so you see on this last slide our email addresses. We encourage you to save those as well, but know that we are going to be reaching out to you as soon as we get that information from Wendy and her team. So with that, that concludes our information about Letters for Early Childhood. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Sean and his team, and we'll be here to answer any letters related questions that we can. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Doria. Super helpful, very informative. So just a couple more things before we start taking questions. We're so excited to be able to bring this to you all. In particular, looking at the data, knowing that training educators in the science of reading has a huge impact on educator capacity and student achievement, which is what we're all out to improve, but also honoring early childhood educators. That this is a space where the Arizona in particular has a lot of growth to do, right? And really honoring that space, that these educators are foundational. The work they do is indescribably important, and yet they don't always receive the same supports that you see in other spaces. No teacher gets enough respect or pay, but especially early childhood. And so we're really excited to be able to have this initiative. And so what I would ask is we are happy to take questions. If you're not familiar with Teams, if you look at the top, there's a reactions button. You'll see a smiley face and a hand. If you could click the hand all the way to the left, that raises your hand and lets me know you have a question. And then I'll call on folks as they have questions. That way we don't miss anybody. And that way there's a little bit of a controlled chaos. So if you want to raise your hand, or if you're not comfortable asking and you want to put something in the chat, I can answer those as well. And in fact, while I'm waiting for hands to go up, I'll answer. There's a question in the chat from Amy. Are there still openings for districts to participate in K-5? So we actually very purposely structured the way we rolled out those K-5 cohorts. We had an original 40, and then we were able to find funding for 10 more. We filled those 40, and those are all, thanks to Dory and Kelly, are all up and running or will be up and running soon. And we for lack of a better term, back pocketed those other 10 to wait to see how things played out with the first 40 and where there might be more need and space. So if you're interested, if you're not currently participating in the K-5 cohorts and you're interested, I'm putting my email in the chat. Go ahead and shoot me an email and let me know, where you're from, what district, about how many teachers you would have, and I'll see. I can't guarantee anything, but I will do my best to find space. Just a quick word on the K-5 and early childhood. We very purposely are approaching this from a district or charter level. Sometimes when ADE does trainings, we do them a bit more scattershot, where a couple teachers here, a couple teachers there. We really want to affect change with this, and so we're zeroing in on training as many teachers in a district as we can, so that there's real impact. But I do want you to know, and this is a huge shout out to Wendy. Wendy did a lot of work to make sure that we invited districts from all 15 counties in the state. So I do want you to know we have representation from every county. Sometimes I know we hear feedback, oh, Maricopa and Pima get all the resources. That's not the case. We're really trying to help the whole state. So so again, I've got my email in the chat, and then let me take questions. Dorothy, you had a question?
Hi, yes. I just had a question about how do we reconcile for ourselves and then also talk to our teachers, our early childhood educators, about any concerns that might crop up regarding the developmental appropriateness of kind of, how over the last, I don't know, couple decades, it's felt like literacy instruction has gotten, squished down into lower and lower and lower grades. And now for some people, this might feel like, wait a second, now even preschoolers are having to do the paper and pencil and sit at a table for whatever. There's been a lot of changes in kindergarten that we've seen over the years, some of which haven't felt necessarily completely developmentally appropriate. How do we address, or how do we even reconcile for ourselves any concerns along those lines?
That's an excellent question. Really brilliantly phrased as well. Kelly, do you want to talk about that planned play? Because I think you were kind of getting to that piece.
Yeah, I think, and I was trying to look back in our PowerPoint to see what that phrase was, but that planful play. I think one of the things I actually participated. I was with a district in Wyoming where I live just a couple of years ago, and actually was a participant in early childhood letters and worked with all of our pre-K teachers that were taking this advantage of this opportunity. And I can tell you that wholeheartedly, they felt like this was a relief from some of that pressure that you described, of feeling like, we were trying to teach students to read at a younger and younger age. That is not what this is about. This is about making sure that they have those foundational skills so that when they do enter into kindergarten and first grade, they have the skills that they need in order to become readers. And so in some ways it feels like, I think for a lot of teachers, it does take a little bit of the pressure off, because it feels like maybe they're getting to spend some time in the areas that they thought they should have been spending time in, and haven't been. But what actually happens is, by really doing this well and learning this information and using the strategies that you learn in letters, it accelerates when they can really start to learn to read in a couple of years. So I think, from a participant perspective, and from somebody who was sitting in your chair not too long ago at a district level, that was the experience that we had, was that it actually felt more appropriate than what we had been previously doing. I'm going to allow Doria, if there's anything else you want to add, Doria, to that, to kind of answer Dorothy's question.
Sure. I opened up my manual because there's a few pieces that we both trained under Dr. Lucy Hart Paulson ourselves, and gone through the training, as well as trained a little bit of all the different letters courses. But there are two pieces that I have highlighted here that really spoke to me. Early childhood educators plan their instruction and teach based on their own philosophy, experiences, and beliefs on how children learn to read. Right. And that's what this does. It kind of like level sets everybody into the notion that there is some research behind this. And then here's the next phrase that goes with this. Early childhood educators, especially those who understand the processes involved with early literacy and language development, intentionally plan activities and are able to create quality learning environments and opportunities for their students. So I think that that's the way to frame it. We're never going to get into this like this way, like the reading wars, pointing fingers. It's more, no, let's just let's level set the understanding of what the research tells us. And once you understand that, you're going to make better instructional decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Dorothy. That was great. And I just want to reiterate what Kelly's saying, from the department's perspective as well. The goal is not that children are reading in pre-K. The goal is that we're helping build the foundational skills so that as they, acquire high quality reading instruction in first and second and third grade, they're better equipped to be lifelong readers. So there's not a sort of pressure goal. It's more about, we want them to learn to garden so that when they eventually open the restaurant, they're using high quality and sustainable food, for lack of a better term. So there's another question in the chat. If we received the informational meeting link, is it safe to assume our teachers were selected? If you were invited to this webinar, you are absolutely one of our eligible schools and districts, and we want you to participate. So as I said, the next step will be Wendy emailing all of you with the link to this recorded webinar so that you can share it with anyone you might need to. Might be a good way to get your teachers, your early childhood folks on board as well. And then you'll respond to her form, letting us know, yes, I'm interested, and here's how many educators that we would like to participate. So it'll be, for those of you who've participated in the third edition, the K5 version of it, exact same process. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hands. Okay, so we are here to answer questions. My email is in the chat. Wendy, would you mind putting your email in the chat as well? Wendy is helping us with this initiative. She's a part of our amazing early childhood team, which is led by Brooke Colvin. And we're just so thankful for you being here. We know this is a very busy day, very busy time. We're just so excited to be able to offer this opportunity. I will let you know, we're using ARA and ESSER funding to pay for this, but we are treating this as sort of a pilot program. We're gonna take the data that comes from this and go to the legislature, go to the governor, go to everybody who will listen and say, hey, look, when we invest in early childhood, we get amazing results, right? And so we really appreciate you participating. You will hear from us very soon with a link from this recording and with that form to follow up to express your interest. If we don't hear back from you through that form, we will reach out one more time, but we might just assume, if you're not interested, there are a lot of schools and districts sort of on the list. So slots will fill quickly. So we hope that, you are excited about this and do hope to participate. So thank you so much for attending today. And I will hang on, and maybe Dorian, Kelly, and Wendy hang on for a couple more minutes if maybe somebody had a question in private. But Dorian, Kelly, did you want to say anything before we go?
Just there's two other thoughts in the chat. Just check those
Oh,
out.
thank you.
Be able to answer those.
Okay. Sorry, I have a preschool teacher who started the process with the K5 staff. Could they jump to the early childhood staff? That would be perfectly fine. And then so there's a concern about how to handle this with a preschool teacher's schedule. And that's something where in discussing, if you are interested, Kelly and Doria, we can help figure out scheduling. That's obviously not going to be an uncommon issue across the country. So I'm sure we might have some interesting ideas on how to help with that. So. All right, well, thank you all so much for attending. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for everything you do for our kiddos. And we are here to help, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Take care, everybody.